Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here on the SSA Philosophy channel, where we dive right on into the philosophy of characters from video games, movies, to TV shows, etc., etc. And in today's video, we're going to be focusing, of course, on the philosophy of the character known as Deadpool. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you like the video and if you like to see more content like this in the long run, please subscribe and hit the like button and also notification button as well too to be notified of every video that I make here on this channel. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us get started. So let's go on ahead and pretty much give a little brief introduction, pretty much saying to the character of Deadpool. So Deadpool, so basically the name alone, it already conjures up images of outrageous violence, witty pop culture references, and a whole lot of red. But Wade Wilson, the man behind the mask, is much more than just your average comic book anti-hero. Really, he's a walking paradox, a schizophrenic cocktail of dark humor, self-awareness, and surprisingly emotional depth, all wrapped up in a package that constantly breaks the fourth wall. So overall, here is a deep dive into the world of Deadpool as portrayed in the movie series. Now, see, Wade Wilson's past is pretty much as murky as the chimichangas that he loves. So, see, we know that he was a former special forces soldier, a skilled mercenary with a dark past. But really, his life takes a dramatic turn when he's diagnosed with terminal cancer. So, desperate for a cure, he volunteers for a twisted scientific program known as Weapon X. And this program pretty much it promises to awaken mutant genes, granting superhuman abilities, but at a terrible cost. Now, see, the Weapon X experiment, it pretty much leaves Wade scarred, both physically and mentally. And his body pretty much is now riddled, like, say, with a powerful healing factor, but it also comes with a constant pain and grotesque, disfigurement. And this disfigurement leads him to adopt the persona of Deadpool, a red and black clad mercenary with a mask that forever hides his scarred face. So perhaps Deadpool's, most unique trait really is his self-awareness, because he recognizes that, he's a comic book character, frequently addressing the audience directly, commenting on the plot and even referencing the real world events. So really this constant breaking of the fourth wall, really it injects a layer of the meta humor really into the narrative, keeping the audience, constantly engaged and surprised. And really, and don't let the jokes fool you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let the jokes fool you because Deadpool is a force to be reckoned with, because he's a master swordsman, he's a skilled marksman with a penchant, for, dual wielding katanas and guns. And really his healing factor is what makes him, nearly unkillable. But really his greatest weapon might be his unpredictability because, he fights with a sort of manic glee, and his movements are pretty much like a blur of violence and outrageous one-liners. So really despite, this dark humor of his and the violent tendency that he possesses, Deadpool isn't entirely heartless, because he has a deep affection overall for his girl Vanessa, for his girlfriend Vanessa, and a grudging respect for certain allies like Colossus. Now, his motivations are often complex, driven by a mix of revenge, a desire for justice, and a twisted sense of morality. But in all cases, though, Deadpool, pretty much defies, easy categorization. He's not like, a traditional hero, because he's willing to break the rules and really indulge in extreme violence. But he's also not a villain. Sometimes, fighting for good in his own way. So really, he's an anti-hero with a conscience, albeit a slightly warped one. But really, when it comes to Deadpool overall is really like a breath of fresh air, really in the superhero genre. You know, because really the Deadpool movies, they all stand out in the superhero genre for really like their R-rated humor, their graphic violence, and the constant like say self, referential, jokes. And Deadpool's, irreverence, and dark humor like provide like a refreshing contrast to the often, serious superhero narratives. And while the action sequences, are undeniably brutal, they're also like laced with a healthy dose of absurdity. But overall, Deadpool in truth is really a character that you really can't ignore, because he may be crude, violent, and completely insane, of course, but he's also undeniably entertaining. He's a character who forces you to question, your expectations of a superhero movie. So, with that pretty much being said, buckle up, grab a chimichanga, or maybe not, and get ready, of course, for a wild ride with the mug with the mouth. So, when it comes to the philosophy of Deadpool, now this is something overall that I like to call known as the Mug with the Mouth Manifesto, embracing the absurd. Now, you see, Deadpool isn't your average superhero. In fact, you probably even scoff at the term altogether. Basically, he's a chimichanga, loving pop culture referencing enigma wrapped in a red and black bodysuit. But really, beneath all that crude humor and fourth wall breaks, it lies a surprisingly coherent, well, coherent for Deadpool, of course, maybe, philosophy. Welcome to the Mug with the Mouth Manifesto. So, really, the first part, really, of this philosophy altogether really is to embrace the crazy. So in Deadpool's world, Deadpool's world is a chaotic blend of violence, humor and existential dread, and really when it comes to like this part of his philosophy, like really he finds humor, like he really finds like this humor, really overall in the absurdity, of life itself, using jokes and pop culture references to deflect from like really the pain and the trauma that fill him. And Deadpool, the mug with the mouth. Like, he isn't like say, and that, as I said before, like, he isn't like your average superhero, but really he's a walking punchline wrapped in a regenerating body. But within that chaos, there really is, like I say, a surprisingly cohesive philosophy, and really when it comes to this philosophy altogether, it's like really, when it comes to like, embracing the crazy, it really is like him like giving like say the big old middle finger to the idea of like pretty much, like the middle finger to the idea of normalcy, you know. And really, how does Deadpool see the world? How does he see the world exactly? Well, you see, Deadpool, he doesn't play by, anyone's rules but his own. Like, he mocks authority, he revels in the absurd, and flips the script on superhero tropes. And this really overall, when it comes to this part in his philosophy, it really challenges, like, say, the societal norms and encourages questioning the status quo. Now, Deadpool's humor is dark, twisted, and often inappropriate. But really, for him, it's more like a coping mechanism, a way to deal with his messed up past and present. And really, this part, of his philosophy highlights the power of humor, even in the face of darkness, to find resilience and catharsis. And really, Deadpool's entire existence, really his entire existence really is like a testament, pretty much is a testament to this. His body, is constantly, regenerating, subjecting him to excruciating pain, yet he chooses not to dwell on it, focusing instead on twisted joy of, pretty much the twisted joy of, being Deadpool pretty much, and really this part, it really emphasizes accepting, what you can't control, and finding joy in the unconventional. And then really when it comes to Deadpool's entire persona, like his entire persona pretty much is like, an embodiment of embracing the strange, embracing the weirdness, and really like his costume, his fighting style, his chimichanga obsession. Like really it's all like a celebration of the unconventional, and really, like this part of the philosophy, like, embracing the crazy, like really it encourages like say, the individuality and the self-expression. So no matter how bizarre it may seem. So really, in Deadpool's world, collateral damage and really property destruction are just occupational hazards. The greater good, sure, maybe, but sometimes blowing stuff up is just plain fun. And really, embracing the crazy, while obviously it might not necessarily be taken literally, well, always might not be taken literally, but really it highlights the importance of really acknowledging the potential consequences of our actions, even if we choose a more flamboyant path. So really, in this case, embracing the crazy, it's obviously not for everyone. It's very messy, it's violent and often inappropriate. But for Deadpool, it's a way of life. And it's a reminder that sometimes the most authentic way to navigate a crazy world is to be a little crazy yourself. So just know, that, you know, maybe, hold the chimichangas, maybe like say after a big fight. Maybe, just maybe. And really, another part, that really is something that to focus on is that really morality is a chimichanga. Now, sure, Deadpool might occasionally do the right thing, but really it's never out of, like, say, a sense of pure moral obligation. Now, his actions are driven by his own twisted, like, say, sense of justice, revenge, or simply because it sounds like fun. Now, this challenges, like, say, the traditional superhero binary of good versus evil. Now, when it comes down to this, how morality is like a chimichanga, really what this is really overall is that it's about as messy as, as his obsession with chimichangas. Really, it's a twisted blend of dark humor, self awareness, and really like a surprising dash of pragmatism. So really, how can we break down this part of his philosophy? How can we break down that morality is a chimichanga? So of course, a chimichanga obviously is a delicious indulgence, but it's also greasy, potentially messy to eat, and not exactly healthy food. Now, Deadpool enjoys the good parts of morality, protecting the innocent, fighting for what he believes in, but acknowledges that, it has its messy realities, which are violence, collateral damage, and the constant struggle. Now, just like chimichangas, how they come with different feelings. Everyone has their own moral compass, and Deadpool might be guided by revenge and a twisted sense of justice, but he recognizes that others have different motivations. Now, see, Deadpool, he doesn't follow a rigid moral code, like he does what he wants. And when the craving hits him, pretty much when the craving hits him, and this really speaks, like, say, to a kind of like situational ethics, where he makes choices based on his own warped sense of right and wrong in the moment, and really getting a good chimichanga often means, getting your hands a little greasy. And Deadpool, like, he acknowledges that, doing the right thing, it often involves violence and mess. He embraces the dirtiness as part of the job. And also, a good chimichanga, it even gives you, like, say, a burst of energy. Similarly, Deadpool's twisted morality, it fuels his relentless pursuit of, well, whatever he sets his mind to. You know, it's a warped version of righteousness, that keeps him going. And really when it comes to the morality, when it really comes to this part, morality is a chimichanga. It's not for the faint of heart. That is very much clear. But really, it's a reminder, that Deadpool is an anti-hero. He's not. He's not like a shining beacon of virtue, but it does offer a glimpse, really, into his surprisingly complex psyche. Revealing, like, say, a character who wrestles with his own sense of right and wrong, even if he expresses it through chimichangas and katanas. And of course, another part overall of his philosophy is violence with a wink. Now you see, Deadpool is a walking arsenal, but his bloodshed is rarely taken seriously. Because the thing about Deadpool is that he revels in the ridiculousness of comic book action, acknowledging the violence while treating it as a wacky spectacle. Now, this is a dark humor that forces us to confront the absurdity of violence itself. So Deadpool, he operates in a world of heightened violence, yet he never lets it get too serious. Really, he injects humor into every fight, a self-aware wink, to the audience. And this absurdity, it pretty much highlights the hypocrisy of violence and reminds us not to take things too seriously, even if he's the one covered in swords. We're covered in blood, we're covered in whatever overall it is that you may think to yourself that what Deadpool can be covered of. You know what? Let's just get to this is keep on moving. Anyway, Deadpool's healing factor makes him a walking punchline. He revels in the pain, using it to mock his enemies and entertain himself. And this warped hedonism is pretty much as though what forces us to question our own perceptions of pain and suffering. And also, when it comes to Deadpool, directly, like, he addresses the audience, shattering, like, the illusion of fiction. And this constant, like, reminder that it's all a game, it highlights the constructed nature of violence in movies and comics. And Deadpool doesn't hold grudges, even after a fight. He can share a drink with his adversary. And really, this chaotic good nature, it pretty much suggests that, villains are just heroes with a bad PR team, or maybe he just doesn't really sweat the small stuff, like near death experiences. But the thing is about Deadpool is that his fights, really Deadpool's fights are like ballets, ballets of blades and bullets, punctuated by, witty one-liners, and really the violence itself becomes a form of communication, a twisted way of expressing himself, and this really highlights, the performative, nature of violence and the way it can be twisted. It can be like a twisted form of expression. Now, the thing is that when it comes to like this part of the manifesto itself, really it's, when it comes to the philosophy itself, I mean, like really this part of the philosophy, is drenched like in sarcasm and soaked in blood. But really beneath the dark humor, lies like say a critique of violence, and a reminder to laugh at the absurdity of it all. So even if you're the one, getting sliced in half, just just remember this. When Deadpool winks, someone's probably about to lose a limb. Probably a limb, or probably a body part, probably an eye, and there I go again. So I'm just gonna keep on moving on at this point. And of course, another part of his philosophy is breaking the fourth wall is breaking free. Now, Deadpool's awareness of the comic book world, and sometimes even our world, makes him an outsider. But really, this outsider status allows him to mock the tropes and the cliches of superhero narratives. Really, it's a commentary on the superhero genre itself, a meta humor that basically keeps the audience on their toes. Now, of course, Deadpool's trademark fourth wall breaking, it isn't just, say, a comedic gimmick, but really it's a core part of his existential philosophy. So really, how can we pretty much pretty much how his really how is his constant meta awareness? How does that become a rebellious act exactly? Well, you see, the thing about Deadpool, he sees the inherent absurdity of the comic book world. A world with preordained narratives and manufactured heroes. And really, he acknowledges, pretty much he acknowledges, the audience, the writers, the very mechanics of fiction itself. And really, this awareness, it exposes him, pretty much it exposes, like, say, the constructed nature of reality, a sentiment that is explored by philosophers like Albert Camus and really by acknowledging, the audience and the creative team. You know, Deadpool defies the idea of like say of a predetermined story. Because really he throws these meta tantrums, these comments on plot decisions, and even threatens the writers. So really this act of rebellion, it challenges like the notion of fate and control, a la, Jean-Paul Sartre's ideas on free will. So really, Deadpool's fractured psyche, in this constant fourth wall breaks. Now, it could be interpreted overall as a coping mechanism. So, pretty much for the absurdity of his existence. And really, he laughs in the face of the nonsensical, refusing to be, like a passive participant in his own narrative. And this really overall reflects, like, say, ideas from existentialists like, Friedrich, Nietzsche, Nietzsche, who emphasize, embracing, the chaotic nature of life. And while Deadpool's fourth wall breaks often have a comedic purpose, they also create a unique connection, with the audience. He winks at us, acknowledges our presence, and makes us complicit in his madness. And really, this breaks down like the barrier between, fiction and reality, fostering a sense of, shared experience. So really by constantly commenting on the tropes and conventions of superhero stories, Deadpool defies categorization. And as I stated before, he's an anti-hero, meta character, a walking paradox, and really, and this challenges, the traditional notions of heroism, and really it dismantles the idea of clear-cut morality. A theme explored by, existentialist thinkers who question, absolute values. And really, when it comes to Deadpool's fourth wall breaking, it isn't just funny, but really it's more of like a philosophical rebellion. He exposes the constructed nature of his reality, rejects the script, and embraces the absurdity of existence. And really, in a world of predetermined narratives, Deadpool chooses his own path, a path paved with chimichangas, pop culture references, and a whole lot of existential angst. And of course, Another part to focus on, of course, in this philosophy is love is a battlefield, but make it weird. Now, see, Deadpool's love life is as messy as his chimichanga habit. His devotion, to Vanessa is genuine, but it's filtered, through his twisted lens. And really, this challenges, the traditional notions of romantic love, showing a dysfunctional relationship with a surprising amount of heart. Now, Deadpool ain't your rom-com hero, that we know for a fact. Sure, he pines for Vanessa like a lovesick panda, but his way of showing it's a little unconventional. So really, to pretty much top it off here, really in the Deadpool manifesto, part of the loves pretty much is a messy metaphor dipped in chimichanga sauce. So really, when it comes to this, love hurts, y'all. Love hurts. And for Deadpool, that might literally mean getting repeatedly stabbed by Vanessa. Don't ask. So, but that pain though, it's a sign, that you're alive. A weird sign, sure, but a sign nonetheless. And really, Deadpool's got like a face that obviously would make a mime cry. Yet Vanessa sees past the buns to the beautiful chimichanga loving weirdo within. And really, this ain't about no appearances. It's about finding someone who digs your unique qualities. And Deadpool, and as I stated before so many times, he's a walking punchline. Like he is literally a walking punchline. And Vanessa's no damsel in distress. Basically, they're both a little out there, but that's what makes them work. Love isn't about finding your opposite, but it's about finding someone who matches your weird frequency. So Deadpool communicates directly, whether it's skywriting, with bullets or serenading with katanas, he gets his messages across. Sure, it's violent, but hey, it's memorable, right? So really, when it comes to this part of his philosophy, it really emphasizes finding your own, well, slightly psychotic way to express your feelings. So really, forget the candlelit dinners. Deadpool's idea of romance pretty much is like, say, a burning building, explosions, and maybe a taxidermy unicorn. It's loud, it's weird, but hey, it comes from the heart, or whatever passes for a heart in a regenerating body. Love doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be true, and maybe involve a unicorn, of course. Anyway, let's get back on track. But basically, when it comes to this part of the Deadpool philosophy, now, I've said it before, it's not for everyone, but really, in this case, when it comes to this part of it all, it's a love story written in duct tape, and chimichanga grease. But for Deadpool and Vanessa, it works. It's a twisted reminder that love can blossom, even in the most unexpected places, even if it leaves a permanent crater in your sock drawer. So pretty much that concludes the end of this video. But overall, the Mug with the Mouth Manifesto. Now, overall, it's pretty much like, say, an interesting philosophy, one that is built on dark humor, self awareness, and a good dose of existential dread. But really, in the nonsensical world of Deadpool, it's a surprisingly effective way to navigate the absurdity of life and the superhero genre itself. Deadpool, the crimson clad anti hero, defies easy conclusions. He's a walking paradox, he's a meta fictional jester who skewers superhero tropes while clinging to a warped sense of morality. Yet beneath the fourth wall breaking, the wisecracks, and over the top violence, a surprisingly complex philosophy emerges. Now, Deadpool rejects, the self righteousness of traditional heroes. He's a flawed character. He's flawed, driven by vengeance and dark humor. He questions the hero's code, happily indulging in profanity and brutality. But this ain't, this isn't like pure nihilism. Like his actions, however, though, are messy, but they're often driven by a desire to protect those that he cares about, like Vanessa or the time displaced Fire Fist. So really, there's a twisted sense of honor beneath the mask itself. And really, Deadpool is constant, winking at the audience. Really, it dismantles the superhero movies, like, say, carefully constructed reality. Like, he reminds us that, these are stories manipulated for entertainment. And this self awareness is both liberating and unsettling. And really, it forces us to question the narratives that we consume and really the heroes that we idolize. Are they truly paragons of virtue or carefully crafted facades? So really, despite his dark humor and violent tendencies, Deadpool grapples with the genuine emotions. The loss of Vanessa in Deadpool 2 is a brutal blow, a reminder of the vulnerability hidden beneath the wisecracks. And really, his quest to protect Firefist, a lost and angry mutant, really hints at a desire for redemption. A chance to do some good in a world overflowing with chaos. And really, these moments of vulnerability or really what make him a surprisingly relatable character. A broken anti-hero, yearning for connection. Now, Deadpool isn't a hero, to emulate, but really a reflection of our own fractured world. He's a chaotic, pretty much he's a chaotic compass, reminding us that, heroism, can be messy, morality can be flexible, and laughter can be a powerful weapon in the face of absurdity. And really, he's a reminder that even the most twisted characters can find a silver, of humanity, and that sometimes the most effective way to deal with the crazy world is with a healthy dose of self-aware humor and a whole lot of chimichangas. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that is, of course, the end of the video. And I want to thank you all, of course, if you stayed this far and watching my video here today. I will definitely have more coming out soon. And I will also, of course, have the link also be put into the description of my last video that I've already made on the channel already as of recently. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And always remember to always be smooth, to be steady, and always be aggressive. Peace.